My name is Lauren Mitchell. For as long as I can remember, my family only noticed me when they needed something. They saw me as a pair of hands, a quiet presence to clean up the mess or run the errand. When I finally left, they laughed, convinced I would crawl back. They said I would never survive on my own. But they had no idea what I was building in the silence. They had no idea that the quiet girl they ignored was the one holding all the cards. This is the story of how they found out. The clinking of my mother's fork against her wine glass echoed in the crowded restaurant. Laughter died down as all eyes turned to her. She stood, beaming, her face flushed with pride. My sister, Amanda, sat beside her fiancé, David, glowing under the attention. Her diamond ring caught the light, sending little stars dancing across the tablecloth. It was their engagement dinner, a celebration I wasn't even sure I was truly invited to. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? I love seeing how far this story travels. I just want to make a toast, my mother began, her voice full of emotion. To my beautiful Amanda and my wonderful future son-in-law, David, we are so thrilled to welcome you to the family. Everyone clapped. I managed a small, tight smile and raised my glass with the others. I was sitting at the far end of the table, next to a distant cousin I hadn't seen in years. I felt like a ghost, a spectator watching a life I was connected to by blood, but not by heart. My mother continued, "Planning this wedding is going to be a huge undertaking. It's going to be the event of the season, after all." She paused, her eyes scanning the table. They swept right past me, then darted back, a flicker of realization in them. It was the look someone gives when they remember an old tool stored in the back of a closet. "But I'm not worried," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. "We have Lauren after all." A few people turned to look at me. I felt my stomach clench. She smiled, a wide, careless smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Lauren has nothing much going on, so she'll have plenty of time to help with the planning. She's always been so helpful." She looked at me directly then. "Right, honey? At least you'll be here to help your sister." The table erupted in soft, polite laughter. It wasn't mean-spirited laughter, it was worse. It was the laughter of agreement, of people who accepted this as a simple fact. Amanda was the star, and I was the stagehand. My father nodded in approval. Amanda just smiled, as if it were her royal right to have me serve her. No one saw the remark as an insult. To them, it was just a statement of fact. Lauren has nothing going on. The words hung in the air, wrapping around my throat until I could barely breathe. In that single moment, 28 years of being invisible, of being useful but never wanted, crystallized into a single, sharp point of pain. They didn't see a daughter with her own life, hopes, and dreams. They saw an assistant, an unpaid intern for the family's main event, Amanda. I didn't say a word, I just nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. I kept the smile frozen on my face, but inside, a switch flipped. It wasn't a loud, angry explosion. It was a quiet, final click. The sound of a door locking for the last time. That night, I went home to the small apartment they always made fun of for being so tiny and sad. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop and started searching for apartments in cities 1,000 miles away. I pulled out a single suitcase and began to pack. I wasn't running away. I was walking away. Without a word, without a note, without a single look back. They said I had nothing going on. I decided they were right. My life with them was over. My real life was about to begin, and they would have no part in it. Growing up in our small town in Ohio was like living in a two-tiered world. There was Amanda's world, and then there was mine. Our house was a shrine to her. Her cheerleading trophies lined the mantelpiece. Her pageant ribbons were framed on the walls. Her report cards, always perfect, were stuck to the fridge with proud, smiling magnets. My world was in the background. I was the one who made sure the house was clean before her friends came over. I was the one who set the table for dinner every night and cleared it afterward, scrubbing the pots and pans while Amanda was on the phone, laughing with her friends. My father would call out, "Lauren, can you grab me a beer?" while he was watching TV, never taking his eyes off the screen. My mother would say, "Lauren, run to the store for me, I forgot milk," handing me the car keys without a please or thank you. It wasn't that they were cruel in an obvious way. There was no shouting or hitting. The neglect was quieter, more insidious. It was in the things they never said. They never asked about my day. They never came to my piano recitals claiming they were too busy, but they never missed a single one of Amanda's cheerleading competitions. On my 16th birthday, they gave me $100 bill and a card. For Amanda's, they threw a lavish party with a DJ and over 50 guests. I learned early on that my value was tied to my utility. If I was helpful, I was tolerated. If I got good grades, it was, "Good, Lauren, that's nice." If Amanda got good grades, it was cause for a celebration dinner. I was practical, and she was precious. I remember one Christmas when I was about 12. I had saved my allowance for months to buy my mom a delicate silver locket I knew she'd love. Amanda had forgotten to get her anything. On Christmas morning, I watched my mother open my gift. She smiled politely and said, "Oh, that's thoughtful, dear," before setting it aside. A few minutes later, Amanda rushed in with a clumsy handmade card she'd scribbled on a piece of construction paper. "Oh, sweetie," my mother cried, pulling Amanda into a huge hug. "This is the most precious thing I've ever seen. I'll keep it forever." She taped the card to the center of the refrigerator. The locket stayed in its box on the end table, forgotten. I learned to live with the ache of being second best, of being an afterthought. I poured myself into my schoolwork, not for their praise, but because the library was quiet and the books didn't judge me. They didn't have a favorite. I found a strange comfort in my invisibility. If no one was looking at me, no one could be disappointed in me. I told myself it didn't matter, but it did. Every single time it did. This dynamic became a part of our family's DNA. I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the one you could count on to do the dirty work. Amanda was the charming one, the beautiful one, the one who was destined for great things. My role was to support her, to clear the path for her. I was the foundation of the house, buried underground, essential but never seen. And I was tired of living in the dark. The engagement party wasn't just another example of their favoritism. It was the final confirmation of my role in the family. The planning for it had started weeks before. My mother called me every day, not to chat, but to give me a list of tasks. "Lauren, I need you to call the caterer and confirm the menu. Here's the number." "Lauren, can you pick up the floral arrangements on Saturday morning? Amanda is getting her nails done." "Lauren, David's parents are very particular about their wine. Could you go to 3 different stores to find the exact vintage they like?" I did it all. I ran the errands, made the calls, and organized the details. I did it because it was expected, because saying no would have caused a storm of guilt and accusations that I just didn't have the energy to face. I told myself I was doing it to keep the peace. The day of the party, I spent the entire afternoon at my parents' house, setting up tables, arranging flowers, and polishing silverware. Amanda floated in around 4 o'clock, her hair and makeup perfectly done. She looked at my work and said, "Oh, this looks great, Laure. You're a lifesaver." She didn't offer to help, she just went upstairs to get into her dress. It was only when guests started to arrive that the full weight of my position hit me. My mother greeted people at the door, her arm linked through my father's. Amanda and David stood nearby, the perfect couple, accepting congratulations. I was in the kitchen, refilling platters of appetizers. Then it dawned on me. No one had ever actually invited me. There was no formal invitation with my name on it sent in the mail. My mother had just called me one day and said, "The engagement party is on the 20th. I need you to bring your famous chocolate fudge cake for dessert." Bring dessert. I wasn't a guest. I was staff. The realization was a cold, hard slap in the face. I was family by blood, but in function, I was the hired help who just happened to not get paid. The humiliation burned in my chest, a hot, bitter acid. I looked at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. My hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. I had a smudge of chocolate on my cheek, and I was wearing an apron over a simple dress. Out in the living room, my sister was wearing a designer cocktail dress, laughing as she showed off her ring. That was the moment I knew I was done. It wasn't just the comment at the dinner that followed a few weeks later. It was the entire ecosystem of disrespect that it represented. The engagement dinner was just the final, public declaration of what I had known privately for years. I was their tool, and I was done being used. The night of the engagement dinner, I drove home in a strange, calm haze. The laughter from the restaurant still rang in my ears, but it sounded distant, like it was from someone else's life. For the first time, the pain wasn't a sharp sting, it was a quiet resolve. Back in my apartment, I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my largest suitcase and started packing. Not clothes for a weekend, but the things that mattered. A few books, my grandfather's old watch, the photo album I kept that had pictures from my childhood before Amanda's shine had completely eclipsed me. Everything else was just stuff. The next few days were a blur of calculated, silent action. I called my landlord and broke my lease, willing to pay the penalty. I went online and sold my car to a dealership for a price I knew was too low, but speed was more important than money. I sold my furniture, my television, anything that wouldn't fit into 2 suitcases. The less I had, the freer I felt. I had a small nest egg saved up. I had always been good with money, a skill my family found boring and pointless. "Lauren is always squirreling her money away," my dad used to joke. "What are you saving for? A rainy decade?" That saved money was now my escape fund. I booked a one-way ticket to Denver, Colorado. I had never been there, but it felt right. It was far away, nestled in the mountains, a place that felt solid and real, a place where no one knew me as Amanda's helpful sister. I never gave them my address. I changed my phone number. I deleted all my social media accounts. I simply vanished. I imagined the conversation when they found out. My mother would be annoyed. How could Lauren be so selfish, right when we need her for the wedding? My father would be dismissive. She'll be back in a month, tail between her legs. Amanda probably wouldn't even notice for a week. The first few months in Denver were hard. They were lonely. I got a small, bare apartment and found a low-level administrative job at a financial firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. I spent my evenings alone, studying online for financial certifications. The work was my anchor. Numbers were logical. They didn't have feelings or favorites. A correct calculation was always correct. It was clean and fair in a way my family life had never been. Every ounce of my energy, every bit of the focus I had once spent trying to earn my family's approval, I now poured into myself. I was building a life from scratch, brick by painstaking brick. And the most beautiful part was the silence. No one called me with a list of demands. No one expected me to drop everything for them. For the first time in my life, my time was my own. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of possibility. The years passed. 1 year turned into 5, then 10. My life in Denver took shape, quietly and steadily. The entry-level job at the financial firm became a career. I wasn't just an administrator anymore. My late night studying paid off. I earned my certifications, then a degree, then another. I was smart, and for the first time, I was in an environment where my intelligence was valued. My bosses noticed my work ethic. I didn't engage in office politics. I just did the work, did it well, and did it quietly. I got promoted, then I got promoted again. I moved from the back office to a client-facing role. I started managing portfolios, analyzing market trends, and making investment decisions. I was good at it, really good. The money started to come in. First, it was a comfortable salary, then came the bonuses. I lived simply, so my savings grew at an astonishing rate. I bought a small, beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood with a view of the mountains. My neighbors knew me as Lauren, the woman who worked in finance and kept a lovely garden. They didn't know my sister's name. They didn't know about Ohio. They just knew me. Here's the part my family never knew. Years ago, my grandfather, my mom's dad, had been a savvy businessman. He saw something in me even as a child. "This one's the quiet thinker," he used to say, ruffling my hair. When he passed away, he left both Amanda and me a small, equal stake in his oldest investment, a block of shares in a regional family business that my father now managed. At the time, the shares were considered a minor, sentimental inheritance. My parents and Amanda cashed in her portion almost immediately to fund a lavish trip to Europe for her college graduation. "It's just play money anyway," my father had said. They advised me to do the same. "Buy yourself a nice car, Lauren." But I didn't. I held on to my shares. I watched the company. I saw its potential. Over the years, while my father and his partners ran the day-to-day operations, the value of that business grew exponentially. Quietly from my desk in Denver, I exercised my rights as a shareholder. I read every report. I voted in every meeting by proxy. My small, forgotten stake ballooned into a significant portion of the company's equity. By the time I was 35, My shares were worth millions, $19 million to be exact. I never told anyone. I never posted about my success online. I didn't buy a flashy car or a giant mansion. My peace came not from the money itself, but from the security it gave me. It was my secret shield. It was the proof that I had not only survived on my own, but thrived in a way they could never have imagined. My life was quiet, stable, and completely, utterly mine. And in all those years, not once did I get a letter or a call from a private investigator. They hadn't even looked for me. Why would they? They didn't need anything yet. It started on a Tuesday morning. I was on my balcony, sipping coffee and watching the sun rise over the mountains before work. My phone, usually silent in the mornings, buzzed on the table. A number I didn't recognize, with an Ohio area code. I ignored it. A minute later, it buzzed again. Same number. I silenced it. Then a text message came through. "Lauren, it's Mom. Call me. It's important." My heart hammered against my ribs after all these years. I took a deep breath, my hand trembling slightly as I picked up the phone. I didn't call back. I couldn't. Then my phone began to buzz relentlessly. A call from my dad's cell. A call from Amanda's. Back to my mom. They were passing the phone around, a frantic, coordinated attack. I blocked each number as it came in. For a few minutes, there was silence. I thought foolishly that maybe it was over. Then the email arrived, my personal email, the one I had kept for years. The subject line hit me like a physical blow. Subject: Amanda's big day. We need you. I opened it. It was from my mother. The tone was a bizarre mix of feigned warmth and outright demand. "Lauren, I know it's been a while and we are all very hurt that you just disappeared like that without a word. But I'm willing to let bygones be bygones. Family is family. Amanda is getting married. We've set a date, and it's going to be a beautiful, big affair at the country club. David's family is very prominent, and we need everything to be perfect. We need you to come home. There is so much to do, and I can't handle it all myself. Amanda is far too stressed with dress fittings and tastings to be bothered with logistics. We need you to coordinate with the vendors. We also need you to be a bridesmaid, of course. And most importantly, we're a bit short on the budget for the kind of wedding Amanda deserves. Your father and I were thinking you could contribute. It's the least you could do after all these years of silence. Call me as soon as you get this. Here's the list of planners we need you to call today." The email continued with a long, bulleted list of tasks and a spreadsheet of budget shortfalls. They hadn't just found me. They had found me with an invoice. They hadn't missed their daughter. They had missed their assistant and their ATM. The hurt was old and familiar, but this time it was mixed with a cold, clear anger. They thought they could just summon me, snap their fingers, and I would come running with a planner in one hand and a checkbook in the other. They still saw me as the girl with nothing going on. I closed the email. I stood up and walked into my office. I didn't feel panic or sadness. I felt an incredible, powerful calm. They had finally needed me, and they were about to find out just how much. I didn't call them. I didn't email them back. Words were their weapon. Guilt, manipulation, casual cruelty. I wouldn't fight on their terms. My power was in my silence and in the world I had built for myself, a world they knew nothing about. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I logged into the secure portal for the family business shareholders. My name, Lauren Mitchell, was there in plain text right alongside my father's. He was the CEO, the manager, but I was a primary stakeholder. My grandfather's legal setup had been airtight. As long as I held those shares, I had certain authorities my father had either forgotten about or never bothered to understand. He always did underestimate me. One of those authorities was the ability to place a temporary administrative freeze on the primary operating accounts in the case of a suspected security breach or internal dispute. It was a fail-safe designed to protect the assets. I looked at the company's liquid assets, the funds my father used for large expenditures, the money he undoubtedly planned to use for Amanda's lavish wedding. With a few quiet clicks, I initiated the freeze. I typed the reason for the action into the required field. Pending a full review of minority shareholder rights and capital allocation. It was corporate, it was cold, and it was devastatingly effective. I closed the laptop. That was my reply. The rest of the day was quiet. I went to work. I led a team meeting. I analyzed a new investment opportunity. I went to the gym. I made dinner. My life continued, uninterrupted. The storm broke at 6 o'clock that evening. My phone, now unblocked, rang with my father's number. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered, my voice perfectly level. Hello? Lauren? His voice was tight with panic, the blustering confidence completely gone. What did you do? I'm not sure what you mean, Dad. Don't play dumb with me. The accounts. I went to make a payment to the wedding venue and the bank called. They said the funds are locked. Frozen. It says the order came from you. How is that even possible? I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. I could hear his ragged breathing on the other end of the line. It's possible, I said, my voice calm and clear, because I own 22% of the company. It seems you forgot about that. He was speechless. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the confusion, the dawning horror. That's not possible, he stammered. That was a tiny inheritance. It's nothing. It wasn't nothing, I replied. It was just something you never bothered to pay attention to, just like you never bothered to pay attention to me. The panic in my father's voice was a sound I had never heard before. He was always the one in control, the one whose moods dictated the atmosphere of our home. Now he sounded small and desperate. What do you want, Lauren? He asked, his voice strained. Is this about money? You want a payout? Fine. Just undo this. Amanda's wedding is in 3 months. I almost laughed. It was still about Amanda. It was always about Amanda. This isn't about a payout, I said calmly. It's too late for that. I don't need your money. I took a breath, and for the first time I told him the truth, not in anger, but as a simple statement of fact. That stake you considered nothing? It was worth $19 million, and I sold it last week. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. I imagined him standing in his big house, the phone pressed to his ear, his world tilting on its axis. You what? He finally whispered. I sold my entire stake in the company. The accounts are frozen, pending the final transfer to the new owners. The authority was mine, not yours. You're no longer in business with me. You're in business with a private equity firm from Chicago. Why? He choked out. Why would you do this to your family? And there it was. The question I had waited my whole life to answer. You're asking the wrong question, I said, my voice steady. You should be asking why I left. I left because you never saw me. I left because at my own sister's engagement dinner, my mother announced to a room full of people that I had nothing going on except being her wedding planner. I left because you didn't see a daughter. You saw a convenience. You didn't want a family member, you wanted free labor. He started to argue, to make excuses, but I cut him off. You didn't look for me for over a decade. Not one call, not one letter. You didn't care where I was or if I was okay. But the moment you needed money for Amanda's perfect wedding, you tracked me down and sent me a list of chores. You didn't see me as human. You only saw me as useful. He was silent. There was nothing he could say. Every word I spoke was the undeniable truth. The life you thought I didn't have, I continued. I built it myself. I have a home. I have a career you can't even comprehend. I have everything I need, and I did it all without you. I did it in the silence you left me in. I heard my mother's voice in the background, frantic and shrill. What is it? What's she saying? The wedding is your problem, not mine, I said, my voice softening just a little, not with pity, but with finality. I hope it's a lovely day. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up the phone. I didn't block his number this time. I didn't need to. The connection had already been severed, not by me, but by them, a long, long time ago. The calls and texts didn't stop, but their tone changed. My mother sent long, rambling messages oscillating between rage and tearful pleas. Amanda sent a single, venomous text. You ruined everything. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply to any of them. There was nothing left to say. A distant cousin, one who had always been kind to me, reached out a few months later. She told me the wedding had gone on. It wasn't the grand affair at the country club they had planned. They had to cancel the 5-star caterer, the famous band, and the Parisian honeymoon. It was a smaller event, held in the backyard of my parents' house, the house I used to clean. The cousin said everyone was whispering, wondering where the money had gone. My family had simply told people they had suffered an unexpected business loss. In a way, it was true. They had lost me. That day, the day of Amanda's downsized wedding, I sat on my balcony in Denver. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The mountains stood tall and steady in the distance. I held a warm mug of coffee in my hands and felt a profound sense of peace. There was no joy in their struggle. There was no thrill of revenge. There was just quiet. It was the quiet of a closed door on a life that was never mine to begin with. The silence I had once found lonely, I now recognized as freedom. It was the sound of my own choices, the sound of a future I was building on my own terms. They had spent my entire life making me feel small, invisible, and worthless. They thought my silence was weakness, my helpfulness, a sign that I had no ambition of my own. But in that silence, I had found my strength. I had built an empire they couldn't see, one that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with self-worth. While they were scrambling in Ohio, trying to maintain a facade of perfection, I was here, breathing in the clean mountain air, completely and utterly free. The peace I felt was better than any apology they could ever offer. If you have ever been the quiet one, the overlooked one, the person who is always there but never truly seen, you know what that silence feels like. You know the ache of being taken for granted by the very people who should have loved you the most. For years, I thought that pain would be a part of me forever. I thought my story was destined to be a footnote in my sister's biography. But one day, I decided to pick up the pen and write my own story instead. My revenge was not loud. It was not a fiery confrontation or a screaming match. My revenge was the quiet click of a mouse, the sale of a stock, and the purchase of a life they could not touch. It was the peace I found in a city they didn't know, surrounded by a quiet respect they never gave me. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to stop begging for a seat at a table where you are not welcome. You can walk away and you can build your own. And if this story felt real to you, if it touched that part of you that has ever felt invisible, know this. Your silence is not emptiness. It's potential. It's the space where you can build a life so full and so bright that you no longer need their light to see. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and my greatest accomplishment was not the money I made, but the silence I finally learned to fill with my own peace.